Okay, I'm not sure if Miles is yet though.
I'm back.
Okay,
Okay, I'm recording now, and I think we only have one person in the waiting room so far.
okay, and then we'll just give them, we'll,
I'm gonna admit because it
uh,
is 101, and then
yeah,
yeah.
okay. Hi everyone, thank you for joining this talk on bullying and mental wellness. What we're gonna do, we're gonna give a few more people who've registered some time to log on. So we're gonna give, let's say, another 3 minutes for them to log on, and then we'll begin the presentation. Okay. As promised, there's about 3 minutes. We're going to begin and just to respect everyone's time and just to make sure that we get through all the content, and whoever can join at a later time will join. So we're going to talk about bullying and mental wellness today and tips for parents, mentors, and more. My name is Renee Ebanks, and I am the program manager of the Alex Panton Foundation. And I'm presenting today with, I'm going to go ahead.
My name is Miles Ruby, and I'm a parenting practitioner 1 at the Family Resource Center.
Okay, great. And yeah, so this presentation was in collaboration with Family Resource Center. So we're going to look at today's agenda first. And sorry, there we go. Okay, so we are going to define what mental health is and what bullying is, understanding the impact of bullying on mental health, as well as tips for parents, guardians, and other safe adults, and then looking at resources. Okay. So what is mental health? Looking at this as well as a range of mental wellness. So According to the World Health Organization, it defines mental health as a state of well-being in which every individual achieves their potential, copes with the normal stresses of life, works productively and fruitfully, and is able to make a contribution to their community. So mental health includes our emotional, our feelings, our psychological, our and social well-being. So who we interact with, right? And affects how we think, feel, and act. So when you really look at mental health, it is within everything that we do. Our workspaces is just as important as our physical health, right? So that brings me to the next point. Um, Looking at this spectrum, there's a mental health falls on a spectrum. And as I said earlier, it's like our physical health and it's something that we all have. And it can range across from feeling healthy to unwell, and it fluctuates on a daily basis and changes over time. So you can go from healthy, coping, struggling to unwell, and that again, that fluctuates over time, fluctuates throughout the day. And sometimes I like to use examples such as, you know, when we wake up on the wrong side of the bed, that can be an example of us not feeling the greatest. But then when we interact with people that we love, or we have a cup of coffee, or we do the things that bring us joy, that can help us move towards the healthy side of the spectrum when it comes to our mental health. So it is something that we all have. So mental health is like an umbrella. We all have it. And when we go through really difficult situations, or sometimes our genetics play, our biology plays into it, our personalities, our social well-being plays into that, it can actually funnel into a mental illness depending on how difficult or significant certain stressors are into our lives. Okay, so that is what mental health is. And now just looking at bullying, defining bullying and the different ways it can show up. And again, this presentation is for adults who are working with children or who have children who are parents, right? So defining what bullying is. So bullying can be defined as hurting, threatening, or picking on another person repeatedly. Again, looking at that word repeatedly. And so more specifically, it can be seen as unwanted, repeated behavior that is done to cause physical harm and or emotional harm that involves a real or perceived power imbalance. So when it comes to bullying, there has to be three key features in order for it to be considered bullying. It has to include behaviors that cause harm and the person knowing that it caused harm, ongoing and repeated. So even if the person who was being bullied has said, hey, this hurts me emotionally or physically, but the person just kind of doesn't pay that attention and keeps going, that is when it becomes bullying as well. And then misuse of power. So there is a power imbalance, making sure that, like, okay, the person who is inflicting the bullying has a sense of control, has a sense of intimidation over the person who is receiving the bullying, right? And then there are three main roles within bullying. I'm trying to be very mindful not to like label them too specifically, like especially when it comes to children. So the person being bullied, which can be seen as a target, the person bullying, so the bully, and the third party person, which is the bystander, which can be helpful or hurtful depending on what they do in that situation. And Miles, if you want to jump in and add anything, you can as well, because I know you are well versed in when it comes to the bystander effect as well.
Sure. I'll just add that one thing we always talk about to our children and parents about bullying is that it's usually on a spectrum. So, like you said, we don't want to label someone as a bully or as a victim. And so sometimes people move in between that continuum. You know, maybe they may be bullied in one situation or environment, but not another. And when we talk about bystander, that really, those are the people that are witnessing it, and they can either be bystanding and encouraging it by laughing. They could be encouraging the bully by helping them, you know, holding a door or encouraging them to send that mean text. Or they can be an upstander. They can be someone that actually will go to the victim slash the target and provide that support. Hey, won't you come sit with us at the lunch table? Or hey, won't you come play with us? So they can help minimize the negative impact that that bullying behavior can have on the target. So that's where we find empowering children is to teach them about the upstander role and how you can protect the target and make a difference. Because so often, even the bystanders feel very helpless, and they can feel victimized as well because they feel like there's nothing they can do. So if they learn how to be proactive in the sense of providing that support to the target, there tends to be more bystanders than there are bullies or people who are bullying. And so that's what we try to make sure that we talk to parents about how they can help their children if they are just bystanders and how to become an upstander.
Yeah. And I'm so excited for you to talk about the parenting tips because I know you have such good tips in there and how you're going to go into detail with that. I'm so excited for everyone to listen and
Excited
hear
to
that.
share.
Yeah. So thank you for that, Miles. So again, looking at the types of bullying. So based on data collected in the statistics, the types of bullying that we see most in our community, our KMI community, are verbal. So students using hurtful language to make fun of someone, particularly on someone's body and their race or skin color. Looking at physical bullying, so obviously that's physical infliction, such as kicking, punching, or shoving. Social exclusion, intentionally isolating people or students from group settings or children from group settings or activities. And then cyberbullying. So that's usually done through the social media platforms, right? And nowadays it's a little bit more complicated to step away from the bullying because like way back in the day when there was no social media, it was just, okay, we're at school, this is what happened, I can leave school and come home, right? But now it's on their devices. So it is something that can happen when they're in or out of school. So looking a little bit more on cyberbullying. So with the growing use of technology and social media platforms, cyberbullying is growing rapidly. It can look like harassment. So that's like repeatedly sending offensive, hurtful, or threatening messages or comments to a person. Flaming or trolling. I've heard of trolling, but flaming was a new one for me. But that's posting or sending hostile or malicious messages to provoke a reaction. So intentionally doing that. So looking at the three features again, right? And that's usually done in a public forum or online groups. And the exclusion, so intentionally excluding someone from online groups, chats, or social platforms to isolate them. So, so cyberbullying, so that includes a little bit social exclusion as well when we look back at the types of bullying. Okay, so just looking at the statistics on bullying in the Cayman Islands. So based on the results of the SISTAS, which is the Cayman Islands Student Drug Use Survey in partnership with the Alex Panton Foundation and the National Drug Council in 2022, close to half of all students and overall, which is 47.7%, reported having been bullied at some time in their life, right? So that's a large percentage. And the proportion of those being bullied in the past 12 months and then looking 12 months from the survey and then 30 days before the survey was notably lower. So 23.1% reporting bullying last year, but 30 days before the survey, 21.1% reported bullying in the last 30 days, right? Looking at those statistics as well, though, girls, 52.9% of girls are significantly more likely to report bullying at least once in their lifetime when compared to boys, which is 42.3%. Then also, the highest proportions of having ever been bullied was reported by students in grade 11, 53.6%. But throughout the past year and current bullying, again, the last 30 days of this survey, so that was in 2022, there seemed to be a decrease as age or as grade level increased as well. Okay. So understanding bullying. So we know that is wrong, but it's really important to understand the reasons why someone could be bullying. So um, again, having that mindset of, okay, what rather than what's wrong with you, think of what's happening with you, right? So coming from a more trauma-informed place. So again, as we said earlier, bullying is about power, attention seeking, feelings of inadequacy, or a lack of understanding. So someone bullying may have had their own experience of bullying or abuse and just trying to project that or find a way to find their sense of control. feel stressed, depressed, or be feeling rejected. Sometimes the feelings have to go somewhere and they don't always come out the healthiest way. They may have low self-esteem sometimes or not realize what they're doing. So sometimes they may have some learning difficulties or neurodivergent. They may not understand that it's actually inflicting pain to someone. So that's why there's a lot of empathy and compassion needs to be given to the bully as well to understand what is happening and then put measures in place so that it does not continue to happen. And again, Miles will talk more about that from a parent perspective. So people usually bully others as a defense to protect themselves from the same treatment. Usually, what I've seen a lot working in the school and different community organizations, a lot of times when a child will come and bully someone is because they were experiencing some form of abuse or maltreatment or mistreatment within their home. So again, within their home as a child, they don't have that sense of power, but when they are amongst their peers, there's more sense of that power, that sense of control. So the impact of bullying and how it affects our mental health. So bullying can lead to many different feelings, especially of sadness, anxiety, loneliness, anger, and low self-esteem. Being bullied can make someone feel like they don't belong, which affects mental health. This is a person receiving it, right? And they're more vulnerable to developing depression, anxiety, and eating disorders. Sometimes when I used to work with parents, they would think that bullying was not and not all parents, but some parents, right? They're like, it's a rite of passage. It is what it is. I was bullied too. They just have to get through it. But mental health concerns are a youth issue because your brain is developing at that point. So the things that they learn and the incidences that happen to them is wiring their brain and how they process things. And that will go throughout their whole entire life and into their adulthood. So it's really important to pay attention to what's happening to children within that young developmental stage. So victims of bullying often try to mask their emotions and pretend everything is okay. That may lead to them to cope in unhealthy ways, such as self-harm, to turn that emotional distress into physical pain as something. It's like, they just want to feel something. They just want to release the pressure, right? Because not all self-harm is suicidal. Sometimes it's just a way to distress. But again, that's a maladaptive way to cope. So helping our children find more adaptive ways to cope, as well as they turn to drug and alcohol use. Again, sometimes they just want to not feel anything. So something that I've learned when it comes to drug and alcohol use when working as a counselor was like, okay, I do these things because it's short-term relief, but in the end, it's long-term pain. So it was like short-term gain, which equal to long-term pain. So we want to flip that for our children. We want to show them, okay, it might be hard right now to get through this, but in the long run, you can gain some resiliency skills, some self-compassionate skills, and some self-advocacy skills as well. So Miles would definitely talk to the parents more about that. And how bullying can affect school performance. So victims of bullying who mask and pretend everything is okay may also express their emotions in other ways, like withdrawing from participation in class or not even going to class, skipping classes, right? Difficulty focusing in those classes and difficulty controlling their behavior and having angry or disruptive outbursts in classes or irrational responses to small inconveniences, right? So when these mass emotions surface in disruptive ways, the victim may be then labeled as a troublemaker. Again, we all want to come from the mindset of not what's wrong with you. We want to come from what's happening with you, what's going on with you, right? So victims of bullying may isolate by not going to school or other activities as at all. This could then impact their development, their social development, their emotional development, their academic development, and then again, all of that trickles into their future prospects, their future. So yeah, so again, bullying can affect so many different things. It's not a rite of passage. It's definitely something to be concerned about. So I'm going to pass it over to Miles now. So you can go ahead.
Okay. So I just need to be made a host so that I can have control of the slides and then I can move forward. So right now I do not, but I do want to talk about, when we're, as a parent, when we are dealing with bullying, whether our child is being bullied or they're doing the bullying behavior, we really have to make sure that we provide safety and trust first before we try to problem solve. So that's back to the trauma-informed care. We want to make sure that that has to be first and that we can ensure that they are um, able to share something that's very painful. Because even like what Renee was saying, bullying behavior, there's a reason behind it. It's like what's happened to you. It's not normal developmental healthy behavior. So they need help as well. So the first thing we want to do as parents is provide early prevention. And the ways we can do that is to really give our children opportunities to learn how to handle conflict in normal situations, like on the playground. We want to guide them through that and give them the tools and the confidence that they can manage a conflict like on the playground, wherever they are, so that they have that confidence. And we want to also socialize our children. We want to make sure that they have opportunities to engage with children from all different backgrounds, learn how to read body cues, facial expressions. We want to give them opportunities to be exposed to different groups and different activities so that they have a much wider view of the world. Sorry, I got a little tongue-tied there. So socializing our children is very important, especially after COVID. A lot of our children missed some of that socialization during the very important developmental periods of their brain. And so learning to read facial expressions, body cues, things like that, they need those opportunities to learn that. And I'm not saying on screen, but in person, in vivo. Another thing we can do is really utilize role play and introduce coping skills for them. Now, role play could be something like, teaching them how to banter back and forth, laugh it off with their mark, or say, oh, so what? Who cares? And that way it doesn't give the sense of power to the person who's doing the bullying behavior. Because if the person who's doing the bullying knows that it is going to negatively affect the person, then they become even more of a target. So one of the sayings you might say is, don't let them know that they got your goat. Don't take the bait. It might still be upsetting, but we don't want to show that. And then they can go and speak to a trusted adult or you as a parent when they get home and process it and talk about it. But sometimes learning how to brush it off can sometimes help them not become a target. Because if the person who's doing the bullying gets a big reaction, that's a very powerful feeling. And so that feels good, especially if they're coming from a place where they feel they have no power, they have no control, because all children want power and control. And so if typically someone who's bullying in school is being bullied in another environment typically, and now like what Renee was saying, they might be projecting that onto other children as a means to feel like they have some control in any situation or in a particular situation. And talking about that too, it's so important to maintain those strong family connections with, their parents and their siblings, having dinner together, talking about our highs and lows of the day and some funny buffaloes, keeping that conversation going as a check-in. That's really important that children have an opportunity to hear about other people's day and how it went. And that also normalizes maybe if something happened to them. And so we really want to keep the lines of communication open, and we do that through connection by spending time with our children at meals, in the car, if it's a short car ride, no iPads, just talk. Sometimes it's easier for children to talk to parents when they're not face to face, but rather side to side. So that's something to think about too. And same with siblings. Sometimes the siblings can be demonstrating bullying behavior. And so having those discussions about, hey, in our family, we don't treat each other this way. We value respect and feeling safe in our home. So our rule is we keep our hands and feet to ourselves. We use kind words, and that always goes back and tied to a value, because when we value something, we tend to protect it and it has worth. And so we want to instill those values in our children, especially when they have siblings, so they will learn to carry that into the world, especially when they go into school and to other communities. It's also important, to talk to your child about how they feel. And what we talk about here in the Family Resource Center is through emotion coaching, is that all feelings are okay, but not all behaviors are okay. And so it's okay to feel sad or angry or jealous and all those different uncomfortable emotions. But that doesn't mean I agree with what you did. So what we do with our emotions is sometimes what gets our children in trouble, as well as us adults. So what's important is learning how to self-regulate and to first understand when they're being triggered. Some kids have thicker skins. They know how to be more humorous. Maybe some families are a little more sarcastic and they can banter a little bit easier. Um, but it's important to understand that we all face challenges, and as parents, we want to normalize that and say this is normal. It's okay to feel that way, and so we want to make sure we do that, and provide the time and the space. Right? It could be a walk after school. It could be check in at dinner time, or even when they're going to bed and it's bedtime, just having that kind of talk at bedtime. And we also want to help our kids build relationships with peers by creating those opportunities for them to socialize. So, having their friends come over to your house, it's a win-win, because not only does it keep your child occupied, but you also got to see how that child is behaving and how they're interacting with your child. And I know when I was a parent of younger kids, I always wanted to make my house the fun place to go to. I had the good snacks, but we had rules and we had expectations. And if I didn't like the way a child was speaking to my child, or they were perhaps going into some bad teasing that could have been, bullying, I would intervene, and we could redirect and kind of process that. And if they didn't respect those rules and our values, then they wouldn't be invited back. But that also helps your child see the limits that need to be placed on what behaviors are acceptable and which are not. And so one thing I tell all my parents is that there's no such thing as a perfect parent or child, and we're all going to make mistakes. And a lot of times we learn through trial and error, and children are no different. They're people too. So we need to encourage our child to rectify their mistakes. They're going to say something or do something that might be uh, not very nice, that could be very hurtful, whether it's emotional or physical, and their intention may not have been to hurt someone, their feelings or otherwise, but they still need to learn to apologize and to own that behavior and not blame it on something else. And so something simple like, hey, I'm sorry, my bad. I know, you're my friend and friends don't speak to each other that way. I'm very sorry. And not blame it on anything else or anyone else. And the best way to do that is to model that, because as parents, we're going to mess up. And the Gottmans from the Gottman Institute even say, let your children see you make mistakes, because then that gives them permission to make mistakes and not have to try to be perfect, because no one will ever achieve perfection. And that's just going to lead to depression and a sense of worthlessness and feeling incapable, and that's not a good place to be as a parent. And so we want to make sure we're setting that role model, and we're being assertive. We want to make sure that as we're parenting, that we're setting limits, but giving age appropriate choices within those limits. That's going to build their self-confidence, give them ability to learn to make decisions and the consequences of those decisions, both good and bad. And so then they develop those critical thinking skills on, ooh, maybe I should not do this because it might hurt someone, versus getting in trouble. So we want to teach our children self-discipline. We do that by guiding, by teaching, not being overly permissive or indulgent, or not being overly uh, authoritarian, like lots of structure with no choices. We don't want to be harsh and not give our children opportunities to problem solve. because when they're in school or when they're in the community and we're not there, we want them to feel capable and have a plan on how to manage, bullying behavior if it should come their way. All right. So moving on, some tips on, I still don't have access to controlling this slide. Yeah. So what we talked about was when someone is bullying, they need help too, not just the person who's being targeted. So all behavior is like communication when we think about children. And what we see above the surface are just the symptoms that the bullying behavior. It could be the mean teasing, the repetitive acts. Those are the things we see above the surface. But underneath the surface is the huge iceberg, so large it can sink the Titanic, huge ships. And what we need to do is get curious and look, not just focus on what's above the surface, what we see, but what's beneath it, and understand the meaning of behind that challenge behavior. What are the thoughts, the beliefs, the feelings, all those things. So, what we see in the classroom or, on the playground could be those type of bullying behaviors, but what's going on underneath? And if we can solve those problems, if we can meet those unmet needs, if we can teach those skills, if we can remove those barriers, then there's no need for the behavior. So we need to focus on the root cause of the behavior, what is underlying, and just share with our child that there is a zero tolerance for bullying and there will be consequences. And you can do it not from a place of anger, even though you might be angry because you're going to have a lot of different feelings. I didn't teach you this. This is not how we treat people in this family. But it's important to understand what's going on with that child and teach them appropriate conflict resolution skills, and think about what am I also modeling. So they need to learn how to have a discussion, how to debate, how to sometimes agree to disagree, right? And so we need to teach them how to be respectful and not aggressive. So we want them to be assertive and help them learn that there are different solutions to problems, that it doesn't have to always resort to force, whether it's emotional, physical, if it's online. And we want to teach them empathy more than anything. And that's, you know, actually learning to put a word to the feeling, to the emotion, and validating it. And once they know what this is going on inside them and they have a name for it, a lot of times the anxiety goes down. Oh, it's jealousy, and it's normal to be jealous. We all get jealous sometimes, but what's not okay is if we, go and break my sibling's toy because I'm jealous that they got it and I didn't. Because even siblings can bully one another. There can be an imbalance of power, it can be repeated. So we want to make sure that they are able to put themselves in the other person's shoes and to understand what that might feel like. Now, we all can feel differently. There's different types of empathy. However, it's a skill that has to be taught. It doesn't just automatically develop. It is in the prefrontal cortex, which is the last part of the brain to develop. So we have to give them opportunities to practice empathy and to even use movies and books to pull out those experiences and talk about it. So there's a lot of different ways that we can do that. All right, so moving on. So how do we help our child who's being bullied? Again, when our child is being bullied, we can feel so many different emotions, and they can be big emotions. It can bring back a lot of negative memories for ourselves, like anger, fear, and helplessness. But what we want to do first is remember it's not about us, it's about them. And so if we want to be effective, the support has to be calm and consistent, and it has to center around connection. So safety and trust must come before problem solving. Because if they're in the part of their brain, fight or flight, they're not going to be able to problem solve. So once the part of their brain that's calmed down and there's no longer that threat, then the part of the brain that problem solves can be engaged. So here are some steps that can help you be successful. So we want our child to feel safe, strong, and supported. So the first thing we need to do is believe what they say. listen and validate. So again, we're modeling that empathy. And even if inside you are going, you want to scream, try to stay calm, take some deep breaths, and just, this is really the most powerful first step. And you can say something like, I'm really sorry this happened to you. Thank you for trusting me enough to tell me, right? And it's, it's not your fault. And we want to make sure that we give them an opportunity to describe what's happening to them. And that's the next step. Ask those gentle questions. I stay away from why. Why implies judgment, but tell me, who is doing this to you? When is this happening? Is this happening during lunch or recess? Where is this happening and what? Like what happens? What is done? What is being said? And how often? So we want to make sure that, you know, we give them opportunities to describe what's happening. And if they say, we don't want to say something like, oh, just ignore it, because that minimizes the harm that they're feeling. And we don't want to dismiss or disapprove of their feelings, because all feelings are okay. So we want to coach them through that and emphasize their strengths, not their victimization, so to speak. So, we want them to know, hey, you deserve to feel safe in school. And we're going to go and help make that happen together, right? And so we want to, empower them and not rescue them. We don't want to uh, make them feel like what they're saying or doing is bad. They're not getting anyone in trouble. So again, what would help you feel safer next time? Okay. So moving on, one thing we really want to do is partner with the school. So collaboration, have a partnership with them, not blame the school. So it's important to document incidents, gather the facts before contacting the school, and then arrange a private and meeting where you can stay calm. So it might take a couple of days before you're ready for that. And, set up a meeting with the relevant personnel. Now, it's important that you remember that collaboration works better than confrontation. Sure, our mama bear or papa bear comes out, we want to protect our cubs, but that if we're coming at them aggressively, they're less likely to be helpful. So again, we want to align ourselves, look at them, see them as an ally and us as an ally. How can we work together to prevent this from happening again and to stop it? Okay. Um, the fifth thing we want to do is teach emotional coping skills, which I also alluded to earlier. Sometimes our children will act impulsively. They'll have that knee-jerk reaction. They'll go right into fight, flight, or freeze. So we need to teach them how to breathe, how to, feel their body. Where are they feeling these big emotions in their body? What are those body cues? Do they have fists? Are they their heart racing? Are they feeling hot and flushed? And what they can do, how to walk away and go talk to a trusted person. So we want to reinforce that positive self-talk so that they learn, hey, you know what? Their behavior says more about me than them, right? And that's something you can say, hey, their behavior says more about them than you. And we're not minimizing what they're feeling, but we're also saying, hey, they need help too, right? Um, so we want to make sure that they know that it isn't their fault, and they can say things like, hey, this isn't my fault. I deserve kindness, those kind of things. The sixth step is to strengthen our connection at home. We want to keep our routine steady and home life predictable. That, when life is not predictable, that breeds anxiety when you don't know what to expect. So, that consistency builds safety, right? Because they know what to expect and now I can relax. So we want to help them to, uh, have time where there's shared laughter and affection and reassurance. So remember, connection is the best buffer against harm. So make those small daily connections that I referred to earlier. Taking a walk after school where you're side by side, or playing a video game or a game together. Um, it could also be that dinner check-in, those highs, lows, and buffaloes, or that talk before bedtime, where a lot of kids, that's a time they will just open up and you're lying side by side, you're not face to face. It's just a lot easier, and they've had time to process their day. All right. Um, so we also want to watch for ongoing stress. It's very important. You know your child best. I always like to say that you're the expert on your child, and you're going to notice if their behaviors are changing. Are there changes in their sleep, in their appetite, in their mood? Are they not wanting to go to school, or they're not wanting to go to certain extracurricular activities? Watch for those kind of signs, because those kind of withdrawals are usually signs that something's going on. And they're sometimes not sure how to talk about it. They're not sure what's going on themselves. Um, so that parental warmth and availability are really one of the most important protective factors against bullying related to stress. So, you know, watch for that and make sure that you tune into that on a daily basis. And, you know, especially with the older children, you can ask them these 3 questions. Hey, what's your number? What's your word? And do you want to talk about it? And so they tell you, oh, I'm a 5, I'm nervous, and no. And the most important part is you have to respect that they don't want to talk about it. And then maybe that 8th or 9th time they'll say yes. But that also gives them the space to be able to be around you and not feel like they're going to be interrogated, especially with our older kids, our teenagers. And we really need to be the number 8 is how to handle cyberbullying safely. We really need to be those digital mentors and teach them how to navigate safely within the virtual world. Just like in the real world, we don't open our front door and go, okay, have fun. We give them guidelines, we give them limitations. You don't go here, you don't do this, you don't associate with these people, you don't do these kind of things out in the real world. And we need to do the same thing in the virtual world, and teach them how not to respond or reply to hurtful messages, how to report messaging, how to take screenshots, how to, report it to the platform or the school. I'm not sure if you guys are aware of the ICT law. Cyberbullying is against the ICT law, and so that is something that is recourse. But you need to have evidence. You need to teach your child, keep their account private. Don't ever share their full name, their address. Never accept friend requests from people they don't know. Maybe minimize chat rooms until they're old enough where they've shown you through their actions that they can manage that, right? So discuss healthy online boundaries together with your teen, all right? And so when we think about it, there's some simple things that we can say as parents when they come to us once they are disclosing that they're being bullied. And we want to thank them for telling us. So thank you so much for telling me. That must have been really hard. That took a lot of courage. And I appreciate you trusting me to tell me this. And to tell them, it's not your fault. You don't deserve to be treated that way. And to collaborate. Let's figure this out together. Because a lot of children are afraid to tell their parents because they think then it's just going to make things worse. Because if we go into the school and just charge in there like a mama or papa bear, then you wonder what message is that sending the child? Oh, I can't handle it. I have to have an adult handle it. And so we want to make sure that we collaborate with our child. What are they comfortable with? We can help them learn to advocate for themselves, give them those tools, role play with them, and okay, I'll help you talk to your teacher in a calm way. Let's role play that. What does that look like? What does that feel like? Because just talking about it sometimes isn't enough, because we all are creatures of habit. So we want to make sure we give them opportunities to practice it. Just like rehearsal, when you're doing a play, we tend to say the same things and it might feel a little awkward saying something different. So we want to practice and feel secure that we are capable of doing that and not fall back into habits. So again, we want to make sure we follow all those tips. And lastly, just some small steps that really can make a big difference for your child is to listen without judgment. Remember, don't blame, don't rescue, just listen. And there's an acronym called TED, TED. And if you can ask clarifying questions like, well, tell me more about that. Or the E stands for explain that to me. And the D is describe that to me. So those are open-ended questions that encourages the child to tell you the story, to start talking. And there's no judgment and there's no why questions. It's all the who, where, when, what, how, those kind of things. And remember, before you contact the school, to stay calm. Remind your child that they're not alone. I'm here to support you. I'm not going to here to rescue or take over. Now, it's important to make sure that you do your due diligence and you make sure you know what the school's anti-bullying policies are, and that you can rely on those and bring those up to the school and hold them also accountable, um, in a calm way, in a way that says, hey, I want to help, I'm your ally, I want to help. We want all our kids to feel safe when they come to school so they can learn. Because if they're in survival brain, they can't be in learning brain. So we want to make sure they feel safe so they can access the part of their brain that learns. And hence, that the changes in behavior at school can also be a symptom that something is amiss there. And we want to make sure as parents that we end each day with our children with connection and reassurance. And that'll look different in different families, but it could be that the bedtime routine where you're lying in bed and talking about your day. It could be story time. It could be just checking in, over a meal or over a game or over a puzzle. We want to stay connected with our kids and reassure them that they're not alone and that you are always open to speak to them. Because if you come across very angry or very upset, that's going to shut them down, right? So we want to make sure we keep that communication open. So another important thing we want to teach our children is the difference between tattling and reporting. We've all heard this, snitches get stitches. And they don't want to be called that, and there seems to be a culture around that. So there's a big difference, and we want to teach our child to report bullying, not to go tell the teacher. And the difference is tattling is really done to cause trouble, to get someone in trouble. It's behavior that's harmless. It's not bullying behavior. It might be good teasing or just kind of irritating or annoying behavior, or they're just trying to get someone in trouble, and really intervention is not necessary. Well, reporting, on the other hand, is done to protect yourself or someone else from harm, and that's emotional or physical. So what we teach our children at FRC and teach our parents to teach the children is to go to the trusted adult. It may or may not be the teacher, it could be the counselor, could be some mentor within the school, and say, hey, I want to report bullying. I'm walking away, I'm ignoring them, and they're pursuing me. They won't let me alone. And I just want to report this because I need your help now. So that's where we need intervention. That's where we need an adult to come in and intervene. So it's really important that they understand how powerful language is, and the words you use can make a difference between whether they think your child is being a tattletale or being a snitch versus reporting something that's harmful, and that intervention is needed because they're out of solutions. They've done everything that they know they can do to protect themselves or even to protect maybe a friend. They can go report, hey, so-and-so I want to report that so-and-so is being bullied. And to know how to do that, the what, the when, the who, the how often, and those kind of things. So we want to equip our children with the confidence that they are capable to do that and to know how to do it in the most effective way. So I hope that was helpful, those tips. And if I'm open to any questions you may have
So we're
regarding
gonna go, yeah, so we're gonna go through the resources and then we're gonna go through the questions afterwards, okay? So when it comes to resources, when it comes to your children needing support and yourself as well needing support, we have at APF, we have a few resources, right? I'm going to go through some of them as well as some partner agencies as well. So a local emotional support helpline for kids is the APF Kids Helpline, where our phone number is right there as well as our text line, which is on www.kidshelpline.ky. And our operational hours are from Thursdays to Sundays from 3 p.m. to 9 p.m. And as an adult, if you need support, like at a later time throughout the night or the evening time and can't necessarily get that support, you want someone to talk to, especially if your child's being bullied or what you can do. We at the Kids Helpline, we do have a part on our website that talks about bullying as well and gives you tips there. As well as, if you want someone to speak to, K-Mind, the Adult Mental Health Helpline, can help you with that as well. And then for children, our teens, we do have our Teen Talk, which is for ages 13 to 17, and it's a monthly session hosted on Zoom. And it has changed to the first Saturday each month now at 12 p.m. And then again, we have something similar, but for ages 18 to 30, because bullying doesn't happen just for children. Bullying happens in the workplaces as well, right? So K-Mind, that I said earlier, can support anyone who's experiencing bullying as well and breaking barriers for those young adults. So that is on third Tuesday of each month at 6:30 p.m. And I'm going to hand it over to Miles for her to talk about her things at FRC.
So, some parenting resources that we recommend, especially these websites to better equip your child if or when they are being bullied, is pacer.org's bullying, Pacer Teens Against Bullying, stopbullying.gov, AACAP.org, DoSomething.org, and the AntiBullyingAlliance.org. There's also another resource I would like to called commonsensemedia.org, which will go a little bit more into the cyberbullying and how to be safe online. And again, that's commonsensemedia.org. So moving on, you can advance the slide. It is Anti-Bullying Month. We call it Stood Up for a good reason. Two teenagers many years ago in Canada decided they needed to do something. The first day of school, a freshman was getting bullied, a boy, for wearing a pink shirt to school. And so the next day, they had all their friends, show up to school wearing a pink shirt to send a message to the bully that that wasn't okay. And that just spread all over the world. And that's why we chose that campaign out of the many that are offered, because we like to empower children and kids that they can make a difference. So on Saturday the 25th from 10 to 12 at the Intergenerational Hub, we're having a forum. It's a social and a forum called Parents Promoting Kindness, Family Social and Forum, where we're going to be fostering empathy and inclusion. We're partnering with Life, the National Drug Council, One to One, Alex Panton Foundation, and Inclusion Came in. And so we're really looking forward to working with all these different agencies and giving families some evidence-based practicing tools throughout, what can you do that we know works, that's research-based. And then also for our kids, we have our Stood Up Fair. We're bringing it back. Our last one was in 2019 before COVID, and we decided it's time to bring it back. And the theme this year is Kindness is Contagious. And it's Friday the 31st from 8:30 to 12 at the St. Ignatius Catholic School Gymnasium. And the Ministry of Education is on board and supports this, and kids going to this during the school time. And so you register your school, you can scan the QR code and complete the application. And then we have different there's 3 themes that the child can choose from, and it can be any type of medium. It can be a PowerPoint presentation. We've had songs, we've had trifold boards, and we are providing those trifold boards as well as poster boards for the younger groups, the 6 to 9-year-olds. But the ages 10 to 16 are the ones who will actually be coming to the fair, and our deadline for those to register is Friday, October 17th. And there are prizes of first, second, and third place per category, per age category. So we really just want to encourage you to get involved, in spreading awareness that, bullying is never okay. Like Renee said, it's not a rite of passage, and we can eradicate bullying, but we all need to stand up and be upstanders and speak out against it, bring awareness about it, to our schools, to our communities, to our families, And, doing so in a fun way is a great way to learn how to do that. So we just want to put those plugs in. Also, you can schedule a Dress for a Cause day. We are selling our stood up t-shirts this year, 15 for children, 25 for adults. They are dry fit. They're very nice. And they have this year's theme, Kindness is Contagious, on the back. And they're really nice and bright pink neon and very comfortable to boot. So that's it for me. I'm going to end by showing a video on that we were showing the children. We're going into the schools and doing presentations on anti-bullying, and this, stood up and trying to give them some tools. And this is just a great little video on to reflect on and to have a discussion with your child.
What kind are you? The welcoming kind?
Isn't that the girl from our science class?
Hi! The inclusive kind?
Let's do this. Come on, Devin. You're good. Mustang!
The friendly kind?
Oh, let's see them. Yo, those are dope.
Jeez! The respectful kind?
Yeah.
Kindness. Everyone deserves kindness. Become a part of it at muststopbullying.org. What kind are you?
Okay, so we're at the question part. If you have any parenting questions, feel free to ask me. If you have any questions about the effects of bullying or resources for children who are experiencing bullying, you can ask Miss Renee. But we're here for you. We have some time left over, so we'd love to hear from you.
Okay. I guess, Michelle, can you send the
link.
survey, please? Yes.
Mhm.
I did, but I think they
Okay.
left.
Okay.
Yes, I did put it in the chat.
Okay, great. So,
They already dropped off.
okay, sounds
Everyone's
good.
gone.
Well, thank you for those who